Left 4 Dead 2 is probably the most successful multiplayer game of all time. Why do I say that? Well, Valve gave it away for free. And you know a game had to make a whole warehouse full of money to be given away for bloody free. So what exactly is Left 4 Dead 2? Well, it's a first-person shooter wherein you and up to 4 people can fight through the zombie apocalypse. You'll be facing endless hordes of basic zombies, and then you will have to face so-called special infected. Now the game has several game modes that will be discussed a bit later. There are numerous weapons in the game, each with their own pros and cons, and there is no one superior weapon. Graphically, the game looks really good. This game uses the Source engine, and said engine really shows its staying power as the game does not look antiquated in the slightest. Another positive aspect of the Source engine is its scalability. This game can be played on even the weakest of machines, which is always a plus when multiplayer is concerned. Sound design for the game is excellent as well, with all of the guns sounding powerful and intimidating, and the zombies are also rather frightening to listen to, especially the special infected. And I'm highly certain that everyone who has played this game has cringed when they have heard this sound.
I'm opening it.
Left 4 Dead 2 has several multiplayer types to choose from. The basic one is the co-op campaign, and this is the one that I have played the most. Essentially, this is where you try to get to a safe house whilst fighting numerous hordes of zombies and special infected. Now, the hordes are sometimes spawned completely at random, and sometimes they just keep coming and coming and coming, and they never stop! And the special infected can get really annoying too. They're spawned at random, as said earlier. Now, when I say at random, I really mean at random. You can try to go down some stairs, and they'll just keep bloody spawning. You have to deal with a jockey, then a hunter, then a spitter, then they get annoying after a while, but that's part of the fun. The game is not the same whenever you play it. It's different each time, thus making you have to constantly be on your toes to try and survive. The basic zombie is fairly easy to kill, but the special infected is where the game gets tricky. These guys can throw off a successful playthrough quite easily. Now you have some fairly weak special infected like the Boomer. All he does is throw up on you, and that calls forth all the basic infected to try to kill you. And really, he's easy to kill, as you can just shoot him a couple times and he explodes. Then you have the Spitter. She is slightly more damaging as her spit actually does health damage, but still fairly easy to kill. Then you get into the rather difficult ones. You've got the Jockey, who is hard to hit, hard to spot, and he'll jump on your head and direct you towards other enemies. And once he's jumped on your head, you can't do anything. You have to hope that either the AI or other players will shoot him off your head. Then you have the Hunter. He, like the Jockey, is hard to see, hard to hit, jumps on you, and then starts slicing you up with his talons. Then you have the Smoker. He's got a really long tongue, which will trap you and then drag you to him. There is a split-second window where you can try to shoot the tongue before it starts pulling you, but that's easier said than done. If he pulls you all the way to him, he starts cutting you up with claws. Then you have the Charger. For such a big creature, you think he'd be easy to spot. Well, not really. He can get the drop on you, charge into you, and then start slamming you into the ground. And that's where we get into the really difficult special infected. You have the Incredible Hulk, otherwise known as the Tank. He is actually not the most difficult special infected. He's the second most. Now what he can do is of course beat you up with his giant arms, or magically teleport a piece of rock into his hands. I guess he's some sort of mage, I suppose. Perhaps this whole zombie apocalypse was brought about by a bloody necromancer. I knew the Mages Guild should have bloody well outlawed that sooner. But anyway, he is pretty difficult to take down, but not impossible. Then of course we get into the Witch, who I like to call the Bitch. Mainly because she can take you down in one hit. That's it. If you startle her, she runs at you, and you go down. And you better hope everybody else can try to put her down. The other game types are variations on the basic one. You have Versus, wherein there are two teams, Survivors and Infected. The Survivors try to reach the safe house, and the Infected try to stop them. Then there is Survival, wherein one must try to hold out against increasing waves of enemies. And then there is Scavenge, which is a variation on Versus. Here, the Survivors must gather up fuel cans and fill up a power generator, whilst the Infected must stop them. You can also turn on Realism mode. With this on, the game becomes almost like a simulation of sorts. Nothing like DayZ, of course, but something similar. The game becomes more realistic with damage profiles being altered and the various outlines being removed so that players must actually be in visual contact with both each other and items. In most games of this type, story is never really much of a factor, But here, there is a bit of story. Not much, but enough to make Left 4 Dead 2 feel more like a real game and not just a bunch of maps put together wherein one must fight various enemies through. All the characters are actually fleshed out a bit and have their own personalities. And the game goes out of its way to create some mystery behind the zombie apocalypse itself. One of my biggest problems with multiplayer is the fact that you have to play it with other people. My thought has always been this: what if you have no one else to play it with? That's why for the most part I have always preferred bots. And Left 4 Dead 2 does not disappoint with this. You can play this game entirely single player if you wish, and you get a pretty good experience with it as well. In fact, if you took out the multiplayer, you would have a fairly decent first-person shooter, which actually stands out from all the other cookie-cutter first-person shooters that have been released these days. The AI that controls the other characters is actually fairly intelligent and effective, and they can actually hit enemies. What a concept! And they know how to heal each other and you, and they will seldom do something really, really stupid. In fact, there are times when the AI will actually do better than most human players, including myself. In the end, Left 4 Dead 2 is a multiplayer masterpiece. It has great, fast-paced gameplay and an interesting world to play in. And it's a game that just about anyone can run, and I highly recommend checking out. And so, this is General Lotz wishing you good Killing Floor and good Counter-Strike Source, or whatever makes you happy.